Hey everyone, One Big Boss here. As you can tell by the title of the video that you clicked on, we're talking Capcom. Or specifically, what are they going to do now? Capcom has been on fire in these last couple of years and pretty much saved themselves from bankruptcy, and there's been a lot to talk about with Capcom in these recent years and what they've done. And for those of you who don't know or who haven't been on the channel that long, Capcom is my favorite game company of all time. It literally gave me friends and chances and opportunities that I never thought I would have had if I wasn't a Capcom fan. And even back in the day when I was a little kid, something about Capcom games just resonated with me a lot more than Super Nintendo like games from Nintendo themselves, the Genesis era of games, and even companies like Konami and Square. Like, Capcom was just the company that I gravitated the most towards. I don't know, maybe it's because it was the games that I was most interested in, or I was really good at the games at the time, but something about them just stuck with me. And let's face it, to understand where we're going in the future, I guess we got to look back at the past a little bit to see where Capcom was and where they're at now, with kind of being back to Cap God status, I guess a lot of people are calling it. And to be honest, you look at Capcom in the 80s with the arcade games that they created back then, and they were absolutely on fire. Like, these were games that you saw in an arcade and you wanted to play. They just weren't like simple little games. There was a lot of love and creation put into them for the 80s. I mean, this is something that you can't dispute with what you see out there with Capcom's arcade classics and everything, and what has been brought in bundles and digital bundles and that you can play now on current gen console gaming. It's absolutely incredible. And obviously, I think some of the biggest success too is like their console gaming, where, I mean, hell, when Capcom even teamed up with Disney, look at all the Disney games we got over the years, for crying out loud, that were all about Capcom and like their style being interwoven into this. And like stuff like DuckTales is absolutely amazing to this day, whether you play the original or the remake, or DuckTales Remastered, I should say. And you look at everything else that the company was putting out for Disney-wise on various different consoles was absolutely fantastic. I know a lot of people like Aladdin on the Genesis more than they do the Capcom one, and I've played both for the long time, and honestly, I think the Capcom one was a lot better. But again, that's just me. I'm not saying that you're wrong if you agree with that. But I really did love what they were putting out back then, because it wasn't just their own creations. I mean, one of my favorite games from Capcom during the NES era wasn't even one that they created. It was an IP that belonged to somebody else, and it was the Winsor McCay comic, Little Nemo, the Dream Master, and it's literally Mega Man in pajamas. I'm not joking. If you actually go and look at this game, the character of Nemo does look like Mega Man in pajamas. I'm not lying about this. There was a movie in the 80s about it that I never saw, and then there was that new one, Slumberland, that came out with Jason Momoa. I don't know if it was any good, but that was a really tough game to play back in the day. And Capcom just knew what they were doing when they made these games. It was absolutely incredible. Then moving off, obviously, into console gaming, Mega Man was like, the king on the NES. There was so many Mega Man games coming out on the NES. There was a ton of other Capcom games coming out at the time. Then the Super Nintendo rolls around, and then we got amazing things like, we got Mega Man X, we got Street Fighter 2 ported over to there, and from there, it just kept going and going. We got 3 X games on the Super Nintendo that are very expensive if you want to try to buy them nowadays. I don't know if the original Mega Man X is expensive, but 2 and 3, whoa, they're up there. And Street Fighter just kept putting out games. I mean, we got the Alpha series on there too, and I mean, it's Super Nintendo versions and everything, but it was just a lot to love from Capcom during that era. And even on the Genesis too, there was a lot. And eventually the PlayStation came around, and of course the giant juggernaut was born there. We got things like Resident Evil, and Resident Evil took off and made Capcom even more of a household name than it already was. I feel that the success, especially of Resident Evil 2 back in the day, is what put Capcom on the map for survival horror. I mean, people played the original, don't get me wrong, but 2 really brought people into the series. 2 really captured people, and you can't deny that. They really did a great job with that back then, and I always loved playing every Resident Evil that came out back in the day. And Resident Evil's given me a chance to be on a platform like, the Residents of Evil, and I get to talk about Resident Evil here on my own channel, and I get to be involved in Resident Evil projects that I've put together and have worked with great people on, and it's always been such a treat. And then you can't forget other games that came out during that time too for their fighting game division, right? During the PlayStation era, I mean, their arcade era too at that point was still going, and you got things like, we got 3 Darkstalkers games. Actually, we got a couple of Darkstalkers games and everything, but We also got Marvel vs. Capcom on there as well. X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. I know it's not the best version. You know, a lot of people don't like that one, but it's got some charm to it. And we also had X-Men The Atom. Marvel Superheroes. Very great games. Very great. Marvel Superheroes, I love that game to death. And obviously, you know, there was some Street Fighter titles on there, like collections and everything. And the PlayStation era for Capcom was great. I mean, Mega Man X4, 5, and 6. Okay, well, 6 is 6, but, you know, Mega Man X4, golden on that system. I love Mega Man X4 so much. And that was like one of my most played games on the PS1 back in the day. And then, obviously, as time goes on, you know, newer consoles are going to start coming out. They're going to start making, you know, new games. And, you know, like some games kind of went under the radar for some people, you know, but they're loved to this day. I mean, we got, like, in early 2000s, we got Clock Tower 3. There was, you know, things like Haunting Ground. And, of course, the Resident Evil remake, the Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 4. We got those great games back in the day. Obviously, it was on the GameCube. We all know the story about that. But then, you know, Monster Hunter comes out in 2004. It doesn't really get its impact here in the States until many years later. Games like Under the Skin came out. I know a lot of people don't remember that one. But there were many games that were coming out at this time that, you know, in the early to mid-2000s, that was great. I mean, Devil May Cry was born. And then eventually, you know, the last one for the PlayStation was in 2006 was Devil May Cry 3. And people loved that. I mean, we also got... like, you know, remixes of games like, you know, Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix, which if you haven't played that game, it's a lot of friggin' fun, ladies and gentlemen. Go check that out. It's really good. But then other games started coming out. You know, we got Power Stone collections. We got, you know, Capcom classics that were, like, bundled in these things. We got Dead Rising in 2006, Mega Man Powered Up, Resident Evil Deadly Silence. 2006 was actually a good year for Capcom if you want to go back and look at what came out that year. We were eating good as fans, but then... you know, fighting games started kind of getting phased down. There was like this dark era of fighting games, and a lot of people were kind of wondering what was going on with Capcom. A lot of things for Mega Man were getting canceled, and it seemed that a lot of things were getting forgotten about for the most part. And then in 2008, and also I guess you could say 2009, when it came to the consoles, Street Fighter 4 comes out. And Street Fighter 4 kind of takes the world by storm. Like, this was a rebirth of fighting games for Capcom, and Street Fighter 4 did just that. It revitalized the FGC. It made it bigger than it ever was. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that esports got dragged in, and esports caused a lot of problems, and I can totally understand that because esports did kind of mess up a lot of stuff. But you look at these games that came out, and they were like, Street Fighter 4 is just absolutely incredible. Then, you know, you got games like Mega Man 9. You were still getting Mega Man Star Force games, which I don't think a lot of people played. And then Resident Evil 5 comes out, and it's a very drastic tone from Resident Evil 4, but a lot of people love 5. They didn't love it as much back in the day, but it sold so much. It sold big numbers, and people, you know, all these years later are still playing it. And RE5 still looks like an amazing game. If you really go back and play it, it looks like an amazing freaking game, ladies and gentlemen. Like, no lie for that. But, you know, then other games were coming out. We got Tatsunoko vs. Capcom in, like, 2010, and then, you know, Super Street Fighter 4 in 2010. And in the same year, you know, we got, a year later, we got Marvel vs. Capcom 3, the base version, the vanilla version of that, right? And you got to look at all the games that came out, like, you know, like at around that time. Like, that was big for them. And then Resident Evil: The Mercenaries 3D came out, and then a couple of months later, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out, sold like crap. So many people were mad about that. And then that, you know, but that game is still highly played. People were interested in seeing it, and tournament level wise, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was a lot of fun to watch. And then obviously, you know, Resident Evil Revelations had their game. It started out on the 3DS. It got ported to later things, which was really good. And then, you know, Street Fighter Cross Tekken comes out. There's a lot of mixed feelings and views about that. The Dragon's Dogma debuts in 2012, and it's kind of a great game. I'm not going to lie. And then more fighting game stuff came out. We got the Marvel vs. Capcom Origins Collection, which gives you Marvel Superheroes and MVC1. You get that right there. Eventually, there was some more games that came out. You got a year later, Darkstalkers Resurrection in 2013. Dark Arisen, Dragon's Dogma. That came out as well. That was out in 2013. So Capcom's putting out some games, but things are just really strange at the time. I mean, you know, then like things like Operation Raccoon City come out. You got games. I know I'm like missing another big one, like There's some like other ones. Like Strider comes out 2014. We also get Ultra Street Fighter 4. It's just like a lot of these games that are coming out, you know. And then Monster Hunter comes out, starts getting a little pull here in the West. Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition drops in 2015, which I can't believe that was 2015. I feel that was not that long ago. You know, it was playable Virgil and stuff, but a lot of people were really wondering what was going on because Capcom had kind of dropped the ball in a lot of other areas, and people were losing faith. You know, Street Fighter 5 came out, Umbrella Corps was out as well, and people weren't really happy, and people were getting upset. And then, you know, obviously, oh yeah, Resident Evil 6 came out a few years prior. You know, it's like 2013? 2012, 2013, and people weren't really happy with that. There was a lot going on, and people were losing faith in Capcom. And then they're on the verge of pretty much getting bought out. They put all their eggs in one basket, I guess you could say. And Resident Evil 7 comes out and is a complete game changer in 2017. And that's where Capcom starts rolling back, man. They start rising from the ashes and save themselves. Because I remember everybody, and I think I made a video on it too, who should buy Capcom? And some people are like, well, what about Microsoft? And I'm like, no! Because in my brain, all I could think of was Rare. You guys remember what happened to Rare? We've got nothing from Rare because Microsoft owns them. We've gotten like sprinkles here and there. But with Resident Evil 7, we get a game that kind of rebirths the franchise, brings in a whole new squad of people to play, because Resident Evil always kind of had that thing where most people's entry to Resident Evil was Resident Evil 2. And then the next entry, the next new wave of fans was Resident Evil 4. And then for years, it wasn't until Resident Evil 7 where a new wave of people came in. And during that, you know, that 7 era and, you know, the subsequent remakes that came later, people were really into this new era. And then Resident Evil 4 happens, the remake, and obviously, yeah, just a brand new wave of fans. And during that time, 2017, we got Ultra Street Fighter 2, The Final Challengers. We got the Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2, which, yeah, Capcom's putting out these bundles, these legacy collections, and they're selling well. They're doing amazing. We got, we got Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which that was kind of a rough patch right there. But then Monster Hunter World comes out, and that game sells incredibly. It unites people during a time where everybody was playing this. I had never seen this much love for Monster Hunter in my life. It was absolutely incredible to see what they were doing here with this game. And again, Capcom, if you're listening to this and see this video, that game is pretty much Resident Evil Outbreak. We want an Outbreak game like Monster Hunter where we can play with our friends. You have the proof that the money was there for Monster Hunter World. Look at Outbreak, your original games, and give us that again. Sorry, I had to go on that tangent. I always got to talk about Resident Evil Outbreak. But Monster Hunter World comes out and just takes people by storm. Then we get the Mega Man X Legacy Collection that comes out. That's absolutely incredible. The Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle in like 2018. And then Mega Man 11 coming in at, I believe, 2018. And that game was a rebirth for Mega Man. It was, I think, the best-selling Mega Man game at that point. I think some of the newer stuff is actually outselling it more. And then 2019 happens, and we're getting two really amazing games. Resident Evil 2 Remake and Devil May Cry 5. Devil May Cry had been gone for like 10 plus years. This game comes back and wins everybody over. It's a home run for Capcom. It's a home run for Resident Evil fans with the Resident Evil 2 Remake that a lot of people have been waiting for. Absolutely amazing. We got the Mega Man Zero and ZX Legacy Collection, which, you know, a lot of people didn't even know that what ZX was. I know that mobile game, Rockman Dive, I don't know if that's any good, so I can't really talk about that. Then in 2020, we got Resident Evil 3 Remake, and despite how a lot of people, including myself, feel about that, it's not a terrible game. It's a bad remake, but it's a great game nonetheless. There's a lot to love in that game. And that sold very well. The Capcom Arcade Stadium came out, and there's tons of great games on there. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection comes out, and a lot of people didn't like the storybook element, like art style to it, and I'm like, well, what would you want? That fits that very well, and it worked. It was a hard game, but it sold pretty well. Monster Hunter Rise comes out in early 2021, and that game sold a lot. It did very well because it's Monster Hunter related. Then Resident Evil Village comes out, sells a lot, makes a lot of people happy. Tons of people are horny for the vampire lady. It worked. It just worked. Capcom is proving why they're really good at what they do. And then you get like the great Ace Attorney Chronicles. You get the Capcom Fighting Collection, which people go fucking buy that shit, man. Show them that you want these older games to come back. The Arcade Stadium 2 came out. Resident Evil Reverse came out. I know a lot of people didn't like that. I personally loved it. The Resident Evil 4 remake came out, and that's where we're coming full circle to today. The Resident Evil 4 remake came out in March and is still going strong, and we've got Street Fighter 6 coming in June, and Exo Primal is apparently coming out in July of 2014. And then after that, what's left, Capcom? What can you do to really make fans happy on the future? What can you sell them on? Well, we do know that Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming at some point, and Pragmata is coming, which we still don't really know anything about that game. So from what I've seen, I'm not really interested, but if they show me more, I will be interested. But this is Capcom's time to shine for a lot of things, and I think by the money that they've made, they can probably hire some more people and maybe make a new studio of some kind. We've heard the rumors that Dead Rising is either getting a remake or a new entry. And if it's a remake of the original Dead Rising from 2006, please bring TJ Rotolo back as Frank West. That dude was absolutely amazing. He is Frank West. It just wasn't the same in 4 without him. Like, I mean, you had somebody else voicing him, and he just didn't do that. It wasn't his fault. It's just a lot of things were going on at that time. It just didn't work. But people are saying no more remakes of anything, make some new games. But I think because of how Capcom works, they're going to keep remaking games because it's where the money is. All the remakes that have come out for Resident Evil since 2 have done very well sales-wise. And even the newer Resident Evil entries have sold very well. So there's no reason for them not to actually go and try to do this, right? So a lot of people are like, well, where's the Code Veronica one? It could happen. It could not. I think Code Veronica definitely needs a remake because as much as I like the original, there's a lot of problems with it. People are saying that Zero needs a remake, and that doesn't need a remake. That needs an overhaul. To fix a lot of the problems in it. But, you know, I could see people wanting that. I for one, want Outbreak to come back in a new game or remake the first 2 games, right? Don't use the RE engine. I don't want the over-the-shoulder stuff. I like it for certain things, but Outbreak shines because of the way the camera worked in those old games and how freely you can move around, but also like that you could see everything, but you were still scared. Like it just works better in the old style for Outbreak. Okay, I don't mind Resident Evil 4 being over the shoulder, or even Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake being over the shoulder. I think it actually worked well at that point. But you know, Outbreak needs to come back. Remake those, send those out. I mean, we just played it recently on Row. Dino Crisis. You want more horror games, Capcom, because horror is a big genre right now. Do that. Bring back Dino Crisis. Give us a 4th entry. Bring Regina back. Remake the original if you have to. People will buy it, especially if you amp it up and you make it look good. There's people been out there making fan games of Dino Crisis and games inspired by Dino Crisis. Do it. And there's also 2 other areas, actually technically 3 areas Capcom needs to really capitalize. Fighting game. You gotta fix your fighting game division. Capcom, I know Street Fighter 6 is going to be amazing. I am not worried about that game at all because you guys understand that mistakes were made in 5. There's new leadership now, so 6 is going in the right direction. But give us the proper Marvel vs. Capcom 4. Give us or hell, make, like what I've been saying for years, a Capcom vs. Capcom series. Use the Marvel vs. Capcom engine or the one that you used for Infinite because Infinite had its problems, but as far as gameplay-wise, that was one of the best friggin' fighting games you guys had made gameplay-wise, honestly, since Street Fighter 4. I like its gameplay better than I do Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which I still play religiously to this day. But I feel that a lot could be done with that, you know? Just make it Capcom vs. Capcom, because that way you have access to a library of characters, and it would be amazing. It would be absolutely amazing if you guys did that. But I think, aside from their fighting game division, which still needs a little bit more work and being built up, the 2 remaining ones are beat-em-ups. We got the beat-em-up collection, but Capcom, the world right now is playing beat-em-up games. You need to get back on that. You need to start making new beat-em-ups. We need a new Final Fight. Streets of Rage got Streets of Rage 4 and then kept getting content for it. We had games like The Takeover happen. There's been so many. There was another game that I covered as well on this channel. It was a review I did, and it was Final Vendetta. And you guys need to capitalize on this because everybody else is out there making beat 'em ups, and they're coming back, and you guys are sitting on Final Fight. Literally have it take place, during Cody's time as mayor. Guy come back, even have Poison be a playable character because she's so loved in a lot of games. She made it into Street Fighter V, which I didn't think was going to happen, honestly, but Street Fighter V was Final Fight the reunion. There was so many Final Fight characters in it, so you got it right there. And your last one, bring back Breath of Fire. Either remake Breath of Fire 3, which is the best one that you guys made back in the day, or make a 6th entry. Because RPGs are huge right now. Everybody's getting into them. Octopath Traveler 2 is absolutely phenomenal. You guys have a chance to capitalize on this, and you need to do this. I've stressed this to you guys for years, and even at conventions when I saw you years ago, I'd be like, hey, where's all this stuff? Why aren't you doing anything with these things? You have so many properties you could be doing things with. And now's the time to shine because you guys are back. You're at the top of your game. You have all this money coming in. Everybody's buying your games, and people love you again. This is the time to shine and really start thinking about the other games you have in your library. Because if you let them sit there, we're not going to stop asking. We're going to keep flooding you. Hey, where's Dino Crisis? Where's the new Final Fight? Where's another Breath of Fire? Where's a Breath of Fire 3 remake? Because it's going to happen, Capcom. And if you want money, that's the way to do it. But you've heard me rant for about 20 plus minutes or whatever. So I thank you guys for listening. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts down below on where you think Capcom's going, where they should go, and what exactly is going to happen in the long run. I mean, are you excited for any of the games coming out? What, personally, do you want to see them work on next? Do you want them to make new games? Do you want them to keep doing remakes? Let me know down in the comments below. So, with that being said, please thumbs up and subscribe because it's free, and this day and age, free is a damn good thing. As always, everybody, thank you for watching. I'm One Big Boss, and I will see you all next time. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you could give this video a thumbs up and a share, helps the channel out big time. Give me a follow on Twitter and Discord where I'm most active, links down below in the description. Also, I stream on Twitch, so if you'd like to see me play a bunch of new to retro games, well, click down below, give it a follow, greatly appreciate it. Till next time guys, be safe, and have a good one.